I'm going to talk about American McGee's Alice, Madness Returns. Which is a sequel to the first game, which itself was really a sequel to the books by Lewis Carroll. This game has been misunderstood primarily by folks literally judging it by the cover. I've spoken to plenty of people who are horrified by the idea of this dark Alice. They assume it's just to be edgy. And that's remarkably unfair. The story is dark, don't get me wrong, but for good reason and serves a purpose. Wonderland consists solely in the mind of a little girl. So what happens to Wonderland if that girl suffers a life-altering trauma? Can she still find some joy and comfort in her imagination? What can she do to regain control of her own mind and take steps toward healing? Madness Returns is a beautiful depiction of what it means for those of us who have this distinct before and after. We'll never really go back, but maybe we can be stronger for it. This game takes place once Alice is a little older, and she's finding things out about her family and her history right along with the audience. I appreciate the pacing of this game, because I've been there. I know what it's like to half remember something and then get a blast of the rest of the memory at an inopportune time. I, like Alice, know what it is to be the subject of gaslighting, and how much harder it is to get better when people who say they're there to help don't actually have your best interest in mind. Alice is both stuck in Wonderland, trying to make sense of nonsense, and stuck in the waking world where everything is arguably even worse. So, it's hard to even want to do all the work to heal, when doing so is difficult and painful, and the end goal is so blurry. Alice faces a lot of hard truths throughout the game, including coming face to face with her older sister, who now appears younger than Alice, because she never had a chance to grow up. She's in a position of power within Alice's mind, but she's not the ultimate corrupting force. I realize a lot of the comfort I get from this game is a combination of, I know how that feels, and familiar characters that seem like old friends. Also, did I mention it's a beautiful game? Bloodshed and black ruin monsters aside, Alice's dresses, the world, and even the dialogue are gorgeous. The voice acting. There's this bit right before you walk up to the Duchess and learn about the flying pig snouts. That doesn't make sense out of context. Anyway, there's this place before that I like to go back to. There's nothing there but flowers. I watch the grass wave gently in the digital breeze and listen to the sounds of the soundtrack. The game is about trauma and overcoming adversity, and still has those little moments of reprieve, if the audience takes the time for them. The music mirrors and complements this, as I find it to be equal parts haunting and soothing. There are tracks I've memorized, just as there are moments of gameplay that stick in the back of my mind and come up once in a while as fond memories. I'd like to think I've seen and heard every inch of Madness Returns. I love the shrink sense, maybe because I'm under 5 feet tall. Something about getting super tiny to find secrets is just very appealing to me. As a side note, I want the hobby horse, one of her weapons. I want a teapot that has legs and a giant eyeball in it. I just want all the stuff from the game, physically, in my house. I like collecting things, I guess. Like collecting teeth, like Mario collects coins, was a joy for me in Madness Returns. I've had a lot of teeth-related medical things in my life, in all fairness. And a few of mine are actually made out of titanium now, so I'll admit that teeth became a kind of morbid fascination for me over time. I'm not sure how anyone else felt about that aspect of the game, but for me it seemed natural for Alice to collect teeth. Like those anxiety dreams where your teeth fall out. I've been told it means we feel a loss of control, which would work for the game. I don't know if that was actually the reason it's in there, but it fits. Every new chapter felt like I was collecting something new, because her dresses changed to fit the levels. This is a wonderful decision for the game, as she herself is a part of this world inside her head. And despite this all, again, happening inside Alice's head, I love the fact that the characters each have their own motivations and their own stories, seemingly without Alice. Everyone knows her, and knows plenty about her, but they go about their business in a way which implies they're still doing that when she's back in regular London. There are aspects of her life where she has no control, and Wonderland also has those moments, such as the Executioner. It's a shift in gameplay, because you can only run away. There's something unnerving about having this all-imposing thing you can't beat in a very Pyramid Head kind of way. He'll get his eventually, though. I'm not going to go into spoilers for that. Also, this all happens while wearing the Queensland dress, and there's something interesting about her being dressed like royalty while she's not wholly in charge of the kingdom. Hysteria mode is yet another costume change. Bloody and horrifying, and gives you a moment of invincibility while Alice effectively succumbs to pure anger. There's a lot of metaphor in this game, including the enemies, aspects of certain boss fights, and even entire level designs. There's a lot to unpack and analyze because of that. So, again, I am a completionist when it comes to games. I really am. I collected every bottle in the game, found every secret, and even got all the extra dresses. But there is an achievement or two, or a bunch, I know I will never get, because I cannot beat the final boss without dying at least twice. And I'm not going to play it on Nightmare mode, because I don't hate myself that much. I know my limits. Kudos to the people who can. That having been said, I'm appreciative of there being different difficulty levels, so that more people can reasonably play this game. I realize that can be a point of contention for gamers as a whole, so that's my stand on the issue. More for everybody. I love that there's different styles of gameplay, kind of breaking up the game too, like side-scroller levels and block puzzles. It keeps everything fresh and interesting to me. Also, I appreciate all the little things peppered. Peppered. That's funny if you've played Madness Returns. Anyway, all the little things throughout, stuck in the background, that ultimately don't impact the gameplay itself. Creatures stuck in ice cubes you might not notice right away, characters having entire conversations if you stick around and listen, so on and so forth. A lot of heart was put into this game. I strive to have that much obvious heart in my own work, and I'm not shy about the fact that American McGee was a main inspiration in my adult life for exploring my own trauma and metaphor, character arcs, and a healthy mix of fantasy and horror. That's kind of how recovering feels, you know? Fantasy and horror with this hinted underlay of simple, tarnished reality. Alice's time on the streets of the real world are brief in the grand scheme of the game, but arguably just as impactful as fighting card guards and walking teapots. When so much is coming from inside her own mind, everything has started to blur. It's hard to pick out what's really happening, and what other characters are being impacted. What kind of power she has over her own actions. This is ultimately a story about autonomy, in many ways. Alice is rightfully frustrated throughout the story. Decisions have been made about her every day of her life since childhood. She's always fighting for the right to have that control. This includes her own memories. The literal memories you collect around the game are just out-of-context snippets, little clues to a bigger story. This works as a collectible, as well as this great aspect of storytelling. In real life, memories warp over time, and it can be difficult to discern where parts of us come from. When well-meaning people tell us to just move on, as though that's an easy thing to do, or that our past doesn't matter, it's a different kind of sting. People in Alice's life are constantly telling her to move on, to forget. It obviously mattered. If the past was significant enough to permanently change us, it is worth analyzing to see why. This isn't the same as obsessing, but in Alice's case, there's a mystery afoot, and a crime that needs to find justice. It's even harder to just let things go when someone did an awful thing and got off scot-free. It's a level of unfair and a feeling of betrayal that permeates so much of this game. Alice needs to find that balance of moving forward and feeling closure. One can't always happen without the other, and this is especially true in Alice's case. Madness Returns can be a difficult game in terms of subject matter. And sometimes in gameplay if you aren't used to the controls or weapons. Also, I'm not going to say the camera is your friend, because it isn't. Still, I recommend Alice Madness Returns to anyone that has a love of psychological horror games, action platform games, anyone with an appreciation of really pretty and surreal landscapes and designs, the music. I recommend this game to anyone who has suffered a trauma themselves, if they think it'll be enjoyable and cathartic, rather than triggering. Obviously, this recommendation comes with a little bit of a warning just because of the serious nature of the subjects tackled within the game itself. Fans of Lewis Carroll's work might like it just because of all the references you wouldn't necessarily have with some other adaptations, and this one isn't alone in a darker or even adult take on Alice. it'll always have a special place in my heart. So thanks for listening, and happy gaming!